In today's video, we have some NHL offseason rumors focusing on the Buffalo Sabres and what the new GM, Kevin Adams, might be looking to do with this franchise. Also want to talk about the Washington Capitals. We have some updates on the NHL Hub Cities for the playoff return, and the new Seattle franchise has ran into some significant delays that could cause arena opening to be pushed back, as well as their name announcement. We'll jump into all the latest news coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. Now, as I mentioned, we have a variety of news to discuss today. Let's first off kick things off here with the news on the Seattle franchise. Obviously, Seattle, as we know, is going to be the NHL's 32nd NHL franchise, starting in 2021. The arena was scheduled to originally open after all the construction in June of 2021. It's what they were aiming for, and there was a lot of talk and hope that they'd be able to host the expansion draft for their team that summer, and possibly as well the 2021 NHL entry draft. It might all be one big event. I know they were really pushing to get an NHL event in Seattle around the time the franchise was being launched, just to really push and promote the league in the area. But unfortunately, that's not likely going to be possible. We do have news from the Seattle ownership group and Todd Lewicki outlining that the arena will not be open for June 1st. It's quite likely going to be August or September before the arena project is complete, largely due to the COVID-19 pandemic. They've been working on the arena all the way through. They haven't stopped construction. However, they've had a lot of issues with their supply chain, which is certainly understandable. I know there's many industries facing the same type of deal. There's all kinds of delays with items being delivered and stuff, so that's obviously been a big concern for them. And they said under all circumstances, they're surprised that it's really not going to be delayed any further than that. So they're hoping for like a late summer opening instead of an early summer opening. So it's unfortunate that obviously the expansion draft will not be able to be held in Seattle for that summer. Obviously, Montreal was supposed to host a 2020 NHL draft. Obviously, that's not happening again due to the pandemic. So obviously, they will be next in line, is what the NHL announced, to host the draft sometime in the next 2 years. And they were hoping to give Seattle 2021. It very well could end up being Montreal, but it doesn't mean for sure it will go there. If Montreal doesn't get 2021, they could instead have to 2022 NHL draft. But either way, the Habs will be getting to host sometime in the near future. Obviously, sad news though for Seattle. I know it was going to be a big deal to really do the expansion draft in their own city and a new arena and all that. But obviously, there's a lot of circumstances here that are beyond everybody's control. Now, the other big news, though, that everybody's been waiting on is, what is this team going to be named? I mean, everybody's been talking about it for a long time. A lot of people on social media keep saying, release the Kraken. Well, the Kraken is not going to be released for several months yet. I know there was a lot of talk about a spring announcement. Obviously, things got pushed back. But now we have an announcement again from the team through NHL.com, outlining that basically due to a variety of issues, and I'll show you a snippet here from the website article. So plans to announce a nickname are on hold until at least the fall due to trademarking issues, local protest on racial injustice and policing, as well as the pandemic. Obviously, the COVID-19 issues are, causing several issues, and everything's taking longer, and everything's had to be readjusted here. So we're not going to get to know the Seattle name for several months. I mean, at this point, it says at least the fall, so there's no guarantee that it's going to be even then. Obviously, they'd be about a year out when we hit this fall around October. Be a year out from when they're supposed to start playing. Of course, with the 2020 season that's supposed to start in this fall, is going to be pushed back until the winter sometime. We don't really know yet how that's going to impact the 2021 season, when the Seattle team was supposed to start. So it could end up being really more than a year. I mean, it might take a few years, as we've seen, for the NHL to get back to its what we used to call the normal hockey calendar. So we'll have to wait and see on that. But unfortunately, we're going to be waiting some time, and we can debate about concepts on jerseys and names all we want. We're not going to get the real deal until at least the fall. Now, as I mentioned as well, we have some more updates on the potential hub cities for the NHL return in the playoff format, featuring 24 NHL teams. Pierre LeBrun's reporting now that obviously Vegas is still considered to be the front runner for the main U.S. hub city, but Chicago appears to be the new number 2 spot if they're not able to put one in Canada. I think the NHL's preference, which many NHL insiders are talking about and confirming, is that they want to have one in the States and one in Canada if at all possible. But if the Canadian situation does not work out, Then obviously Chicago is right now looking to be that backup city that could be the next one. That could be the number 2 city in the U.S. But based on remarks from Justin Trudeau, the Canadian Prime Minister, yesterday, it sounds like the Canadian government's willing to waive that isolation period of 14 days for players coming into Canada to go to their NHL cities. So that might not be an issue after all. But I know even a lot of Canadian teams that are going to be in the playoffs are making plan Bs as well to even have their own training camps in the U.S. as well if need be. So all kinds of moving parts here, all kinds of things still undecided. But we are supposed to get an announcement hopefully next week, according to Pierre LeBrun, with confirmation on where the hub cities are going to be. Now, as I mentioned as well, we also have some offseason rumors and rumblings I want to take a look at regarding a couple of teams. Obviously, the big one being the Buffalo Sabres. Yesterday was a pretty dark day in Buffalo, where Buffalo Sabres owners Kim and Terry Pegula basically cleaned house completely. It started with GM Jason Botterill being fired, and that was announced, but then we learned later that there were several other staff members and employees that were let go, including the director of amateur scouting, pretty much majority, if not all of their amateur scouts. There were some player development people, the entire coaching staff of the American Hockey League team. There's a lot of people impacted. It was a very dark day, as I mentioned, with the Sabres, and now Kevin Adams has full control as GM and not many staff members to work with, so clearly he's going to be an extremely busy man. But fortunately, I guess in a way, with the Sabres not being involved in the playoff format, he's going to have ample time to get things up and going here before they're going to be, because it's going to be quite a while before the Sabres take to the ice again. But still, you can't help but wonder how he's going to shape this team. But one thing that's going to certainly fuel a lot of speculation is that he has a lot of players now on expiring contracts, a lot of UFAs. Between the UFAs and the RFAs, there was 14 active members of last year's roster that are on expiring deals. The RFAs will likely be, possibly more retained, but the UFAs is certainly a lot of question marks for sure. Clearly, that these players, may not be back. Obviously, they weren't having a lot of success. Could they clean house? I mean, they already have a fair bit of flexibility with the cap as it is due to this, so there's no guarantees. But obviously, a lot of their unrestricted free agents include guys like Verleek and Simmons. You got Gergensons and Larson. You got VC, Sobotka, Hunwick. I mean, really, you could probably make a case that a lot of those guys, if not all, but at least most, probably won't return. Obviously, you get some RFAs that likely are going to be signed, like Ullmark and Goal. You got Brandon Montour, who I do think could be a trade piece. Sam Reinhart's going to be looking for a new contract as well on an extension. He's going to want a longer-term deal this time. You've also got guys like Curtis Lazar and Dominic Cahoon as well. So there's certainly a lot of questions in Buffalo. Not too many answers at this point, but based on the remarks from the owners yesterday regarding Kevin Adams, they said that they trusted him. And one of the key lines, though, in comments that they made to me was they felt he was going to listen to them. So obviously they were having issues between themselves and Jason Botterill seeing the vision for the future. And part of that, I think, had to do with the fact that they wanted to cut a lot of costs, and Botterill wasn't in agreement with that. So not to say that he was doing a great job as GM. There was already a case, I think, for him to be fired. But I, personally thought they might give him another year to see what other things he can do. Because even though there's some questionable moves made, and obviously the Sabres have been floundering in this rebuild for some time. Now they're going to be rebuilding a rebuild, I guess. I'm not sure how you want to call it, but it feels like they've been rebuilding forever. But I really thought they'd give him another year. But there has been improvements made at the NHL level from a point production standpoint. The American Hockey League team wasn't doing too bad, but it would have been nice to see some prospects, certainly develop a little bit further too. But obviously a lot of questions there. And I think, like I said, they had a case to fire him, but saying 3 weeks ago how it really made it sound like his job was safe, and then to come out and fire him and all those other people just seemed like it came out of nowhere. But they kind of feel like Kevin Adams is certainly a bit of a yes man and will do exactly what they want. He's worked with them a long time. They trust him and feel like he'll do what they want here. Now, obviously, they have owned this team for about 9 years, and really the problems that have been going on with this team have lasted just as long as their ownership tenure. So I'm not really, like I said yesterday, I don't really have a lot of confidence right now in the owners. So we'll see what Adams will do. But obviously when it comes to potential trades, you can't help but wonder if guys like Brendan Montour, you got Rasmus Ristolainen, they got way too many defensemen. Colin Miller's another one. Some of these guys have to be moved. I know we've heard head coach Ralph Kruger refer to Ristolainen as a core member of the team recently, but that doesn't say for sure that he's going to be sticking around. They might be trying to pump his tires a little bit to try to generate some more interest. Why hasn't Botterill made a trade on the blue line recently? because they've carried the whole season for way more defenders than they needed that are NHL eligible on NHL contracts. And I think a lot of it's just that he wasn't getting the deals he was looking for. He was trying to be patient, but ultimately was almost too patient and wasn't able to improve the team. They were clearly lacking depth in other areas, especially within the forward group for sure. So I think Kevyn Adams has a lot of decisions to make. There's already trade rumors kind of flying around about what he might do. Obviously not a lot of time here since he's taken over, so he probably doesn't really know yet. But I would imagine that we're going to see some significant changes, reshape this team, and hopefully get them on the right track. I mean, outside of guys like Eichel and Skinner on long-term deals, you get Kyle Okposo. You can't help but wonder if he might be bought out. Obviously, they need some forwards. So, I mean, as much as they have a ton of them as UFAs and RFAs, they probably need to keep a few. Otherwise, I'm not sure who they're going to put on the ice next year because it doesn't make sense for them to go out and sign a ton of expensive free agents. They're not ready for that. They're not ready to contend. So we'll see. But Kevyn Adams is going to have one of the most daunting jobs we've ever seen in recent memory, trying to rebuild his franchise, and we'll see what moves he makes. But in your opinion, who are the most likely players that he brings back that needs a new contract, and what players do you see as being potential trade targets for him as well? Now, as I mentioned, I want to quickly touch on the Washington Capitals. There's a recent article in The Athletic talking about moves that we should see from the Capitals this offseason once we reach that point. And really, overall, I don't think we're going to see anything too drastic, but they likely are going to need a top four defenseman. And there is a lot of talk that they are very interested in keeping defenseman Brendan Dillon, who they acquired from the Sharks at the NHL trade deadline. I know it was a brief sample size, but he appeared to be a pretty good fit there. Obviously, this playoff run that they have the potential to go on here, and when the playoffs return, might dictate his future, because obviously he'll have another chance to play with the Caps and see how he fits in. But obviously he could be a potential re-signing. More than likely don't bring back Ilya Kovalchuk, which is referenced in this article as well, so they might have to find a replacement for him. And it also references the fact that Ilya Samsonov is expected to be the starter next year, and with Braden Holtby likely departing through free agency, they're going to have to find another goaltender to be a capable backup. There's going to be tons of capable backup goalies with experience on the market when free agency finally kicks in, likely this fall. We're going to have guys like Hudobin, maybe guys like Cam Talbot might be a good fit. Thomas Greiss is another possibility. Depends on what their budget will fit here, but obviously they're not going to have a ton of space with the salary cap likely remaining relatively flat. I don't know what we're going to get for that as of yet, but there's certainly not expected to be any increases for some time due to all the lost revenue. But certainly Washington is a team that I think will only make some minor tinkers here, except they could retain Brendan Dillon. They might bring in one or two free agents, but they also have some other younger players that are ready to step up too, like a Connor McMichael. Might be able to step into a third, fourth line role with the Capitals next year. They might be able to have some rookies get some experience on entry-level deals, which could also offset some of their cap costs and replacing a guy like Ilya Kovalchuk, because he likely doesn't return to Washington after how he played in Montreal. And if he has any success in the playoffs, he's certainly going to get more money, and many are expecting that he resign and return to Montreal, where he signed last year after being let go from the Los Angeles Kings. So certainly another interesting team to keep our eyes on. Braden Holtby's going to be one of the bigger name free agents out there in the market. Tough to say where he goes, but as I mentioned before, I really don't see him returning to Washington. They want to hand over that net on a full-time basis to Samsonov. And let me know who you think they would be most likely to go after through free agency to have a solid backup behind a young netminder. Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments, and we'll continue the conversation. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and turning on your notifications so you don't miss any future content. And give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I'd appreciate it if you did. As always, thank you for watching, and I will catch you next time.